Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the BBL Showdown final stream. Now, I gotta mute this really quick on my end. Okay, so I don't know anything about who won any of these games or not. So I will say right away, this is all very blind information to me. But what I'm going to do really quickly, I'm going to pull up the replays really quick, and then I'm going to have them open. I'm currently in a private call with that specifically any of the BBL Showdown staff can join whenever they want. So I've already let them know in advance that they are welcome to join as long as it doesn't get to more than a couple people. Obviously, I mean, I can't really restrict it from them. They have admin, but in general, I wanted to keep it a little bit chill, just that way then it was not too overwhelming. So what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna make sure I set up the windows specifically for I just need to really quickly set up the windows specifically for our matchups. So we have window capture, which this one will be for replays. So we're gonna set this up. This is for replays, and I'm gonna put it right under the layout. I should have totally done this before, but it's okay. You get to see it live. You get to see it live. So did I eyeball it perfectly? I eyeballed it perfect enough. Okay, beautiful. That's actually pretty good for an eyeball. Let me finish setting this up really quickly first, by the way, and then I will replays. Let me lock that layout. And then we have layout number 2, which is for the team builder. Let me see. Showdown. Here we go. Here we go. And I'm going to really quickly go to the team builder tab just so I can frame it right. I'll pull up a VGC team, actually, that I'm currently working on. Well, not that I'm working on, that I'm currently getting used to. Shout out to Clutch for this team, by the way. Clutch is absolutely a goat. How does this look? Does this look good? That actually looks perfect. Oh my god, I eyeballed that too. 2 for 2, let's go. Okay. So let's see who's in the chat. Dashing Set Battle Finals. Kat says she's gonna win. Kat, you're not gonna win. Amel, I know there's a winner. Well, obviously, I mean, otherwise we wouldn't be here. No, we're gonna go Null, Sylvalia, Arceus. We're gonna go top, bottom to top. And I'll get into why when we get into it, but let's see. I was gonna watch Owen's underrated video, but I guess I'm watching that later. That's fair. I still haven't finished that, actually. I got to around like right after where mine was. So good old Draft League, haven't watched it a bit, but this will be a nice return. Yeah, no, I don't play a lot, but I still run BBL, and I really wanted to showcase the finals, because Showdown doesn't really have anyone to showcase their games, and I really wanted to showcase theirs. So yeah. With that said, though, let me really quickly pull up the teams. So first up, I believe, yep, this is for the finals for Type Null. So let's open up, this is Burning against Simpleton. So I will say, I try to go into these as unspoiled as possible, and I would highly prefer if no one spoils me on who won any games in the chat. That would be amazing. But I sadly did get spoiled on who won RCS. I'm going to not spoil it for anyone who might be, for some reason, also trying to go in blind. I sadly do know that. I'm still going to comment on it as impartially as possible, but I sadly do know who won. So I will say, I still went 2 out of 3 though, so I'll take it. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pull up the matchup. I need to set up another tab for matchup specifically. Okay, let me do that really quickly as well. So we're going to really quickly type Null. Nope, Cat did not win. Cat's a liar. All right. So let me really quickly, let me see. So we can go to Burning's page and type in Simpleton. There we go. Okay. And I can make another window capture for the matchup. And we'll keep this on the side. So really quickly, oops, not a media source. We do not need a media source. We need a window capture. And this will be for the window capture portion. Alright. So here we go. And then I can honestly just crop this right over here. And I'm gonna set up that crop really quickly. Just that way then we can show just so we can show the crop. And that way then the matchup's still here. We'll do like 900, 1100, and we'll go a little bit more. And perfect. And then on the right hand side, or actually we'll just do in the bottom really quickly. We'll do like 100, and then we'll go a little bit more, and perfect. Okay, and the rest I can hide in the corner. So this matchup will go right over here. That way then everyone can see the matchup as we're going over it. So these are the current teams of the finalists. Burning's team, which is the one we're actually going to go over. I did not get teams from Simpleton and Fist. So their teams will remain a mystery throughout this, but it's perfectly fine. I'm glad I got at least 4 to 6 because it gives a lot of information for the pregame at the very least, and it gives some sort of context to where we're going. So, Burning's team in this matchup is a Veltal, Superior, Mega Gallade, Lycanroc Dusk, Heatran, Spectrier, Rotom Wash, Kecleon, Glowking, and Zygarde 50%. Meanwhile, Simpleton's team is Calyrex Ice, Moltres Galar, Garchomp, Slowbro Galar. They have Celesteela, Thundurus T, Megalopony, Omastar, Manaphy, Quilladin, and Comfey. Now, I will say right off the bat, for anyone who might not be familiar with the BBL Showdown season, BBL Showdown had 20 coaches in it, so the teams are inherently going to look worse. It's not even just a division quality thing. I actually think there are some really amazing coaches in Null this season in comparison. I think that a lot of them could have given a run for Savali, in my opinion. Not all of them, to be fair. There are some really low-end coaches, too. But I think that, at the very least, both of these coaches could have easily been Savali, and maybe even just broken even, if not actually made playoffs. So, huge shout-outs to both of them for doing amazing. I especially think that Burning has personally been one of, if not my favorites, to win all season, actually, considering Burning somehow got the privilege of using Mega Gallade plus Veltal, which shouldn't have happened, but on top of that, also getting, like that whole left-hand column plus Serp is disgusting. That is, Burning's team in general should not have happened. So shout-outs to Burning. Truly an amazing, amazing, amazing team. So, Burning is my personal favorite to win, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think that Burning just truly did an amazing job drafting under Veltal. One of the best jobs I think we've seen in the Showdown scene for BBL, besides, not as much as being one of the best, if not the best. Trying to take myself out of the equation, I don't even think I have the best personally. I think it's up there. I don't think I have the best, though. But regardless, though, Burning's team in this matchup was first Scarf Heatran, which Scarf Heatran, I believe this is just to outpace Megalop, if I remember correctly. So any non-Scarf on this team is really good. Eruption, Flamethrower, Flash Cannon, and Earth Power. Eruption, to be fair, Simpleton doesn't really have the best switch-ins to fire, albeit, to be fair, Garchomp, Manaphy, and Omastar are all decent resists. However, with the Scarf, obviously, for example, Scarf Flamethrower does risk the burn on Garchomp, which is pretty bad for it. And also, obviously, without knowing the full moveset, it still does risk with options such as Dragon Pulse. So Garchomp isn't exactly the most reliable, hard switch into an offensive Heatran. Then Manaphy, obviously, is a pretty good one, but Manaphy has to deal with stuff like Rotom Wash and Superior, which, as we see, Rotom Wash is the next Pokemon this week, with Rocky Helmet, with Willis, Pain Split, Hydro Pump, and Volt Switch. My guess is this was meant to be a check to stuff like Megalop, Garchomp, and maybe even to an extent Calyrex Ice, but I feel like probably less so Cali Ice, because Cali Ice obviously does get Seed Bomb, and could definitely do a lot of damage under Trick Room. Which, speaking of, Cali Ice could definitely put a lot of damage on the Burning team in general. I think it's really the only mon I would say that has a good matchup here. Next up, we have Leon with Choppleberry, with Stone Edge, Play Off, Accelerock, and Protect. My guess is this is Choppleberry mostly for Mega Gallade, so that I can play off it back. Not Mega Gallade, Megalop, so I can play off it back. I'm kind of unsure why not CC, because I feel like CC is just really good here, barring the Psychic types, and I guess Comfey. Actually, to be fair, Play Off plus Stone Edge actually hits this team really well. So that's totally fair. I think realistically there's a good case. Glowbro could definitely unironically be a really good Phys check to this, especially with Regen. It could probably sponge a couple hits. Since it's not a boosting item, it doesn't have Drill Run, it doesn't have Sword Stance. I'm assuming that Protect was probably just to weaken it to Fake Out Spam, which is totally fair. Fake Out Spam is definitely one way that this team could get worn down pretty easily, barring Rotom Wash. We have Mega Gallade up next with Close Combat, Jab, Axel, and Leaf Blade. Honestly, this just hits really well. Axel plus CZ rails most of this team. Really, the only Pokemon that switches in pretty badly to pretty well to this would be like a really, really bulky Cali Ice, which I assume that a Fizz-Def Cali Ice could take 2 CCs. I feel like it's not out of the equation. But I'm not entirely sure on the calc. I actually do want to calc that really quickly because I do think that is a very interesting calc. Mega, I would be shocked if it doesn't take 2. It could take a Weavile hit. Calyrex Ice. So yeah, no, max HP actually is a guaranteed 3 KO. So this is just a Boots Cali with max HP. It could easily set up a trick on that, to be fair. Though it does risk Shadow Sneak still, to be fair. Yeah, no, that's totally fair. The chomp point is definitely pretty fair. We have Begging Bird up next with Dark Pulse, Oblivion Wing, U-Turn, and Roost. Dark Pulse, Oblivion Wing kind of do rail. The switch in quite literally does not exist to the stabs in this team, which, to be fair, a lot of teams really don't switch into Veltal stabs. It's why it's so obnoxious. But Comfey is really the only dark resist besides Lop in the entire team, and Lop is obviously weak to flying, and Comfey is still neutral and still will take a good amount because Comfey isn't exactly that bulky. And even still, there's a Heatran just existing right here to pressure Comfey, so Comfey is accounted for it. Finally, Bandit Zygarde. Honestly, Bandit Zygarde makes a lot of sense. The ground switching is quite literally Quilladin, so I totally get it here. I'd probably run Bandit Zygarde too if I was in Birdie's position. Really good cleaner too with E-Speed. Honestly, E-Speed could probably just win on its own late game. Especially getting around stuff like Quick Attack Lop. So you can totally see that. In general, really like Burning's prep here. Sadly, I cannot give any what's the word, credit to Simpleton's team yet. We have not seen it. But with that said, let's get into the battle. So first things first, we have the Burning versus the Burning versus Simpleton game. So with that said, let's see. So Simpleton ended up bringing Calyrex Ice, Garchomp, Celesteela, Megalop, Manaphy, and Comfey, which makes a lot of sense. Realistically, looking at this team, if I was to pull out the match, which I can do that really quickly actually. So if we look at the full matchup right here, I'm kind of shocked that there was no what was I thinking of? I'm kind of shocked that there was no Thundy T. I feel like Thundy T with like a plot set, if they can clear Zyger, which shouldn't be too hard, between Manaphy and Ice Horse, I feel like Thunder's T actually putting a lot of work here. Just personally speaking, because really, again, the only real check on this team to it would be like maybe AV Glow King to a certain extent, and then obviously Zygarde is a really good check. But between Cali Ice, Manaphy, Triple Axel, Lop, there's a lot of good checks to Zygarde at the very least. And even to Glow King, I mean, there's a Garchomp just sitting right there, which could definitely put a lot of pressure on it, if not outright beat it. Depending on the set, of course. Obviously, Shucka set would put a lot of resistance for Garchomp, but it could still definitely be muscle passed by this team in general. So I feel like the no Thundy T was kind of weird. I'm not huge in Comfey. I get, to be fair, it's really the only dark resist that, besides the Lop, that Simpleton has. Still not really huge on it, though. I feel like it gets walked over by Heatran and just enables Scarf Try not much more. So if I had to pick, I feel like that Lop is just a really free lead for Simpleton. I can't really see a situation where you would not lead Lop. And I feel like that Burning could totally take advantage of this with leading with either Rotom or Heatran. I think that both are really good leads here. So let's see what the leads end up being here. So right off the bat, Gallade actually leads. Gallade's a pretty good lead too, to be fair. Gallade obviously doesn't risk Fake Out, but to be fair, it's still kind of U-turn fodder. But at the same time, though, Burning has pretty free range here, considering the best switch on will be like what, Helmet Comfey or Bulky Cali, which Cali is taking a lot of damage off rip, so not exactly the best. And it seems as well that that not only did Simpleton forget about Inner Focus there, which is one of the few times this ability ever will do anything for Megalop, but it also seems like that Burning ended up actually trying to overpredict here. Well, not overpredict, predict more so the Comfey coming in, which I guess could end up indicating potentially for later on what Simpleton might pivot into, maybe being the Cali Ice or the Celesteela, probably the Cali Ice to be fair, but it definitely shows at least that Burning also did anticipate that Comfey would probably be the switch in here, which is kind of interesting because I feel like Comfey has to dedicate to a Veltal this game, because otherwise there's not really a reason to really bring Comfey here if it's not for a Veltal, in my opinion. So with that said, let's kind of see where this goes, because I feel like this definitely already is a bad spot for Lop. Lop was pretty good in this matchup, in my opinion. Besides, Cali Ice is like one of the only other good Pokemon here. So we see that Rotom Wash actually comes in here, which is really nice at the very least. It does punish Lop a bit for U-turning here, and Manaphy does come in, which I'm kind of unsure why Manaphy came in. Like, I get Energy Ball is a thing, but Rotom's bulky enough to take that, and it allowed in the Yveltal for free, which actually is pretty bad considering, again, the only switch in is Comfey, which Comfey is really, really pressured very, very difficultly, but it's pressured to an insane amount on this team. And Burning gets a really free U-turn this turn as well, if not just Oblivion Wing, because the only Oblivion Wing switch in would be the Celesteela, and Celesteela still takes a lot from Dark Pulse in the following turn. At worst, maybe it's like a Meteor Beam, but it's still slower than everything, and there's no way it kills a Veltal from full. So already, this is actually a really good turn for Burning. I think Burning definitely has the upper hand so far. So we're going to see U-turn go off. That's perfectly fine. We see as well it does not Helmet Comfey, which is good information actually for Burning, because that does make it so then Gallade has a lot more free of a time, not worrying about Helmet from Comfey. What up, Zeke? How are you doing today? So Scarf Heatran is in now. Scarf Heatran has a pretty free turn to just click a Fire Breath here. Realistically, again, Manaphy can come in, sure, but it doesn't really seem to have recovery so far. So it's honestly really nice for it. And we see that Lopunny actually ends up getting sacked here, which again, kind of unfortunate, because Lopunny did a lot of damage this matchup, in my opinion. Considering the fact that there was only really one fighting switch in, being Mega Gallade, not exactly the best fighting resist, especially when Lopunny could always just go for stuff like Facade on it, or even just U-turn does a good amount of damage. So really good already for Burning, getting that really early kill on Lop before it can get any sort of nuisance off. Manaphy does come in for free, though, to be fair, but again, Rotom Wash is kind of expendable now, considering, while obviously that's the water resistance gone, which is a whole other issue for Burning, to be fair, there are still other checks on this team to Manaphy, such as, for example, Fat Veltal could probably be a really good check, which this ended up actually being pretty fat, and 216 HP is rather bulky, and this can obviously just go for Oblivion Wing or Dark Pulse. But to be fair, at the same time, Manaphy, Rotom Wash wasn't really doing much at this point anymore. It didn't really get a paid split off against anything besides Selly. So that's definitely pretty useful in my opinion. Also, hi Pokemon fan, how are you doing today? So we're gonna see Rotom go down here, but Yveltal just comes right in. And honestly, I would just go for Oblivion Wing, which it seems like Bernie ended up actually doing, which is really useful considering the fact that if this isn't Chesto, which actually it is Chesto, okay. Well, even still with the Chesto Berry, Dark Pulse, oh my god. I thought the Dark Pulse was gonna do like 40%, but doing half just goes to show how broken Dark Aura really is. Same reason the Xerneas is broken. So we see the Dark Pulse go off. That did 34% to a comp fight. I'm telling you guys, this is not a check. This is not at all a check to a Yveltal. It's at best a soft response. But the fact that this is one of the best switch-ins that Simpleton had, this mon is really gonna rail this so badly. And I'm so proud of Burning for doing really good with the Yveltal this season. Kind of shocked to see Lycanroc switching, I'm not gonna lie. I couldn't really tell you why that was the play. I feel like Heatran was just so much more free. But to be fair, maybe Lycanroc's just meant to be a sack at this point. Did give a free Earthquake off, though, which isn't exactly good, especially this Spidef boosting. But thankfully, it is Fizdef boosting, which does help a lot, considering the fact that Eruption is now a really free click here. Even Manaphy is going to take... It's not going to take 2 Eruptions that well at all. And Garchomp still has to obviously lose a lot of HP taking that. Well, not a lot, but it's going to lose a good amount. Like, see that? That's the Fire Resist right here. And he just got taken 1/3 off because of the Scarf Eruption. So, this is, again, really good for Burning, I feel like. Like, while the game is pretty even piece-wise, I feel like that Burning just has a significant upper hand at this portion. To be fair, 2 Scale Shot hits was kind of bad. Could have been a lot better, but it did give a really free Oblivion Wing this turn, which we can clearly see through the Comfy taking half and Yveltal getting pretty much back to full. The chip on Heatran isn't really that bad, it's only 2%, and we still see... Ooh, okay. So that crit actually was kind of unfortunate, considering the fact that is some valuable HP off of Garchomp. That would have probably done around, I want to say like 40%, so the fact that that's now going to kill the next one is pretty bad for Garchomp actually, considering it is no longer actually a reliable switch-in, and the only steel switch-in of this team is Celesteela, which is never switching in on a Heatran. So that was actually pretty bad. I don't know if it's game losing, but it is definitely not preferred, considering this is still definitely, there's no way hell it's not in range of Bandit Zygarde E-Speed, so to each their own, it is unfortunate, but I don't think it's really game-ending there is all. Especially with the Scale Shot drop, I highly doubt that was what's going to matter. Though, I will say, this is going to definitely force a Gallade Sack here, which Gallade Sacking could end up mattering. I don't know if it's really going to. Heatran does so much damage here. I think that probably was a sack to make, to be completely honest. But Bandit E-Speed, yeah, Bandit E-Speed's going to pick off. I will say, though, I'm kind of curious on the calc if that was going to really matter. Because, again, I don't know if it necessarily did. This is an Adamant Bandit Zygarde, which I know, to be fair, Zygarde isn't exactly regarded as one of the best, like, breakers or anything. But this is still a Bandit Zygarde. It needs to be respected. And I feel like in a worst-case scenario, this could have been picked off by something else. So, Extreme Speed. I'm actually really interested in this calc. Because it is still -1 Garchomp. Oh, I need to make sure this is level 100. Yeah, so actually, that crit and Flash Cannon pretty much guaranteed, it completely guaranteed the fact that that the E-Speed killed. It did 60% min to, 60% max to a no bulk Garchomp at -1. So the crit actually really did suck for Simpleton, I'm not gonna lie. It could have still maybe killed, to be fair, but it was pretty unlikely. And again, this Garchomp probably also had some bulk here. Probably didn't have a lot of bulk. It probably needs to creep a Yveltal, to be fair. Comfy U-turning there seems super risky right after Oblivion Winged in half. Yeah, no, I agree, honestly. I think that the Draining Kiss was pretty good there, and then considering the fact that I don't think that it was... Actually, no, it was definitely revealed to be a Scarf Heatran. To be fair, what I'll give Simpleton is that if Simpleton didn't do that turn, I think a Heatran just claimed to kill with Flash Cannon. Like, it absolutely claimed to kill. At the very least, it took a ton of damage at Garchomp, and then Celesteela also then had to switch, which could have given a really free Zygarde switch-in, which this team doesn't really have a good switch for. Like, even Calyrex, it takes a ton of damage from that it doesn't really want to take, because it'd have to take 2 arrows. So, I don't think it really changes it. Like, I think it was kind of a high-risk, high-reward play. But anyway, Calyrex does come in here, which, honestly, if I was Burning, I would just sack. I would 100% just sack here, because this is just really good chip. And this clearly ended up actually over-predicting here, which is kind of funny, because now it seems like Simpleton's really just trying to play from the back, playing around these Trick Room turns, which Burning is definitely getting the upper hand on. I would definitely just click arrows here at this point. Yeah, okay, so Burning actually did click the arrows here. And the reason why I said the arrows is considering the fact that Trick Room did end that turn, and even if Zygarde got sacked at this point, Yveltal actually just came for free and probably just railed through the rest of this team, which I still think it does. It should very easily rail through this team at this point. So the arrows there was actually a really no drawback play at that point. I think the fact that the Leech Seed missed here was a little bit unfortunate, but clearly, I mean, it's not going to matter. This is not stalling out of Veltal. And even if Comfey was doubled into at this point, I don't think it really made a huge difference. We see the Heatran actually comes in here, and Specs Flamethrower on a Scarf Flamethrower honestly probably just wins. Burn, I don't really think it mattered a ton, because again, Scarf Flamethrower really just wins at this point. It's not like Comfey is going to take the switch in. I feel like this is legitimately just game over. Because if this was dual fire, that'd be one thing. That would really suck without getting the leech hits. But with Flamethrower, this honestly is just a clean. I can't see a world where this actually matters. And even if for some reason Flamethrower doesn't do a ton of damage here, you can just double and then sack another Pokemon and then bring in Heatran and just go for Flash Cannon to win. So very good game to burning actually. I think that the Garchomp that was kind of unfortunate, but I don't know if it necessarily mattered. To be fair, so what did we actually see on Garchomp this game? So Garchomp showed Scale Shot, Swords Dance, and Earthquake here. So my guess is it probably had a Rock move just to really guarantee the KO on Fata Veltal. We also know it was not a Life Orb set, so it's not like we could have worn it down to Life Orb. This was at best maybe like an Expert Belt sort of variant. So let's calc hypothetically Expert Belt versus a Veltal here. Or we'll also calc Dragon Fang to be fair, to give credit where due, because it could obviously be a Dragon Fang set, which could help the Scale Shot calcs. So let's do Scale Shot. Oh my god, that did nothing. That did like no damage to a Veltal. Okay, yeah, Veltal could have easily cleaned this up to be fair. I don't even think Dragon Fang mattered. And this is a 3-hit Scale Shot, by the way. It does 68.4% max with Expert Belt. Rock Slide. Rock Slide would have actually done it, to be fair. Rock Slide could have totally done it. But to be fair, Rock Slide also hit. Like, there were definitely ways that that buying no crit, this could have been a win for Simpleton, but overall, I don't think it was. It still definitely was up in the air. Though, to be fair, the crit sealed it, I think, in my opinion. Simpleton still had some outs, to be fair, with Trick Room. I think it's just a matter of calling 50-50s insanely wrong every single time. But it is what it is. How much would the Chomp be without the crit? It would have probably been at around like 60%, which means it could have potentially taken the Chomp E-Speed. It really just depends on how much bulk this Garchomp had, which we don't actually know, considering the fact that I didn't get Simpleton's team. So it was still ambiguous, but I will say that I would probably give it like an 80% chance to win for Simpleton, should the crit have not happened, but it still wasn't a guaranteed. Also, Jared, oh my god, welcome. Blast in the past. What up, Chang Gang? How are you doing today? Next up, let's pull up the next game, which the next game we have up is going to be, let's see, this is, okay, here we go. So this is P. McGee's team from the Silvally Finals, my division. So P. McGee ends up playing Fist, who took me out in semifinals. So shoutouts to Fist, of course. Fist had a phenomenal season. So win or lose, I'm really looking forward to this game, actually. This is probably the finals I'm most looking forward to, because it's the only finals that Ultra Necrozma even made playoffs in, let alone finals for. So I'm really looking forward to this one, actually. It's Ultra Necrozma against Xerneas. This, in theory, actually, on paper, is a matchup, and I'll pull it up really quickly on screen for everyone. But this is, in my opinion, a matchup that should be very, very free for Fist. Now, I will say, to be fair, that P. McGee actually did win this one in main season. Fist ended up mentioning at some point, there was some sort of play that Fist made that ended up sealing the game for him. I can't really remember the specific play. I just remember that there was a play at the time that was mentioned that Fist kind of choked with. So, yes, I will rename it Larry. There we go. Larry the Pukamuku. So, I'm not 100% sure on the specific plan for Fist, but I do know P. McGee's team here. P. McGee mentioned that most of the team was pretty straightforward prep barring the Pukamuku, which was a Registeel lure, so I will quickly go over that. But we have Scarf Xerneas, which I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, P. McGee, but I believe you've brought this like a majority of your games this season, like at least 60-70%. Not it's a bad set. I actually think a Scarf Xerneas is a really good bring for this team, considering you have semi-stall draft otherwise. But it's still really cool to see Scarf just doing so much damage as it really has on your team. With Focus Slash, Moonblast, Night Slash, and Thunderbolt. Night Slash obviously is here for the Blacephalon, mostly just because it is technically a Fairy Resist. Thunderbolt's really good for Blastoise and Mega Gyarados, especially considering the fact that if it's pre-Mega, it is still going to be neutral. And it's kind of just there, to be honest. It could have probably been Defog, to be fair, but Fist doesn't really have a lot of hazard setters. It could have maybe been Aromatherapy. I think the Team Bolt still is just a really good option here, to be fair. Night Slash also helps a lot with the pre-transition Ultra Necrozma. If it is still Doming Space, it's a 4 times effective hit. So it's still definitely good to have that. I think it's actually a really good bring. to have mixed set with Bite Slash, because it could definitely put a lot of pressure. Focus Blast, really good for the Reggie. Probably would have brought CC, but to be fair, I get why Focus Blast, considering Fist has brought a couple curse of Registeals, and it wouldn't actually be that terrible this game. So I totally get the Focus Blast, but you're kind of leaving your game to chance for accuracy there. Still a really good Zarnia set though, really, really terrifying against this team. Megalop with triple axle, U-turn, fake out in close combat. Honestly, kind of just speaks for itself. It's really basic Megalop, really just creeping Ultra Necrozma here. Fake out spam's really good against this team, especially with Scrappy. We have Ditto here, Scarf Ditto, really just basic Scarf Ditto, meant to hopefully help with Ultra Necrozma revenging. That's a sub Ultra Necrozma though. I think it kind of just wins on preview, but there's not really a ton that P. Mickey could really do about that if he doesn't get the double perfectly. This Pyukumuku is mostly meant to trap Registeel, so then it could beat Rest Registeel, since I believe P. Mickey mentioned that he thought that Rest would come on Registeel this time around. So it's Block, Spite, Rest, and Toxic, which honestly, the Spite Pyukumuku is actually really clever. I like that a lot for stalling it out, because you could easily just force a Struggle Stall at that point. We have Umbreon with Tenga Berry, which I'm assuming is for X's or Ultra Necrozma, with Wish, Protect, Foul Play, and Heal Bell. Really, again, just Ultra Necrozma lure. Really good one at that. Then finally we have Goodra with Assault Vest with Draco, Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, and Surf. I guess this is for special Ultra Necrozma, but also for stuff like Blacephalon, for example. And even special Sarah Aura. So there's a lot of options here. I like this team a lot, actually. I think that P. McGee really outdid himself on the prep. So P. McGee, you get the thumbs up from me. I give it a solid 8 out of 10 prep. I think really my only thing would probably have been just throwing close combat on, going with mixed Xerneas. No, that's actually round 8 Pyukumuku. It's round 8. It's left 1 through 6, and then right 7 through 12. So it isn't in that order. Oh right, Landowai. I forgot about the AV for Landowai. That's actually really good. You know what? I'll bump it up to a 9 out of 10. I forgot about Landowai. Good job. I'll be honest, I completely ignored it on the prep. But let's see the game itself. So with this game, let me pull up really quick. So Fist ends up bringing to this match. I'll turn off the matchup really quickly on the layout. But Fist brings Ultra Necrozma, Landowai, Registeel, Zera Aura, Clefable, and Mega Gyarados. So with that in mind, I'm going to flip the perspective because I have the team from, so I'm going to really quickly, here we go, switch sides. So since I have the team from P. McGee, I'm going to watch it from P. McGee's perspective here. So with this team, I think that if I was P. McGee, I don't even know what I would lead here, to be completely honest. I feel like Ditto is unironically a really good lead, and the reason I say Ditto is a really good lead is mostly considering the fact that with a Ditto lead here, Ditto could be a really good scouting piece turn 1. Fist does typically try to position his games around setting up for a win con as early as possible, and varying that win con depending on the matchup. Not all the time, but it's been a majority of the games that I've seen from Fist and BBL. So I feel like that leading off with Ditto is an unironically pretty good idea here. If not Ditto, I think it's Scarf Xerneas is also a really no drawback lead, because obviously Registeel can be doubled on by a Pyukumuku, and everything else is a pretty bad lead against Xerneas. So I feel like it could totally be both. In terms of Fist's lead here, I feel like I'd probably be leading off with Zera or maybe Clef. Clef could also be a really good leader, to be fair, because if Xerneas leads, it's taking advantage of Fairy Aura, and maybe some sort of bulky Clef could teleport, or even just go for it could always just go for a hard switch into Registeel. And Fairy in general hits really well against the Pokemon that P. McGee brought. So I'm kind of curious about what Fist ended up leading, because there's a lot of options in my opinion. So we see that Clefable does end up leading, and Pyukumuku leads. So Pyukumuku is really good too, especially considering the fact that this is a block set. Could have been really good if Registeel tried to set up rocks turn 1, so I respect it. We see that Clef actually ends up being the rocker, and Pyukumuku, I'm going to turn off matchup. Pyukumuku ends up actually going for Toxic here, which is really good because this revealed that it's unaware Clef turn 1, which is really nice. We see Heal Bell go off, which I like the double Toxic because this sort of baited in the Registeel actually, which is really, really nice. Because hopefully this will get a block off, and yes, we see the block actually go off, which is great considering the fact that this is Rest, so it's really easily going to be able to PP stall on this Registeel, which honestly, this was incredible. I'm so glad that P. McGee made this work. What I will say, I'm actually going to pause this really quickly to go over this. Actually, I'll let it run because this is kind of just P. McGee stalling out Pyukumuku until Registeel struggles. I know that for a fact that in Null last season, Vera and I both thought that Pyukumuku did as much work as it did, considering the fact that a lot of people just didn't prep that well around it. But I feel like this season, P. McGee really stepped up the Pyukumuku prep, and I think that he made it like a legitimately terrifying Pokemon this season. Definitely a huge step above last season. Not that last season was bad prep. I think last season it came down to the players not playing well around it. I think this season it just came down to P. McGee truly using it, like, phenomenally. So, really incredible job P. McGee this season. I think this is a really good showcase of just how good he's been using it this season. considering he tried to Toxic Spam until Registeel had to be the Pokemon that came in, considering it is the Toxic immunity, and then just taking advantage of the block that turn. So, truly, incredible job with the prep on this set for this finals match. I think this is truly an example that Pikachu could actually be a legitimately good Pokemon. To be fair, I'm not going to act like it's an end-all be-all of really good Pokemon, but Pikachu basically just tried to take out the only Xerneas check at all. Just flat out at all. So, it's really going to open up Xerneas in the endgame just by stalling out this Registeel, which this Registeel cannot beat Pikachu. Last season was your second time drafting it. This is the 14th. It explains a lot. It really does show. I think you really, it's night and day comparing last season to this one, in my opinion. Not to say that your sets last season were bad. I think it's just a huge step up in quality of sets this time around, though, is more what it is. But incredible job, though. Like, this really is working out well. And when you told me that this was why you brought Pikachu, I was kind of unsure if it would actually work, but I think it was a matter of you getting the lead perfect. Because Clef was quite literally as good of a matchup as you could have gotten to bait in the Registeel this early on, which is going to open up Xerneas so well later on. So, at this point, I'm going to totally try and skip ahead a bit, because we kind of get the point. We've seen it going on for 20 turns. Not to take any away from P. McGee, of course, but, like, we get the point. So we see Registeel is going down to struggle this turn, and then we're gonna see the Zera Aura come in, and I'm kind of hoping that P. McGee could actually make this work against the Clef too. I think that this is Pikachu's game. Personally, I'm team Larry now. I am team Larry all the way. Initially, I wanted Fist to win for Ultra Necrozma, but now I'm totally team Larry. So we see Clefable actually come in on the Goodra, and we see that P. McGee gets the prediction right. Oh my god, that's actually amazing. That's really good, because clearing Clef now too, that's a pretty good soft check to lob. To be fair, Zera's a great offensive response, and Ultra Necrozma could get up a DD and win. But that was a really, really good turn, because it's one of the only Pokemon that could have probably defensively taken it on. I will say that Fist's team is mostly offensively built this week, so probably not a huge deal. Mostly I'm assuming that Zera or Gyarados are probably the win con, if not Ultra Necrozma. Just basing off of how Fist typically plays, but it's still unfortunate that pieces are getting lost here. Like, that's Declare gone, so Pikachu could have totally done some work. We see Zera getting Toxic, which is actually really good, especially if it was a bulk upset. And now Scarf Zone just gets a free Moonblast off. There's no resistance on this team. There's not even a switch in on this team, mind you, because Registeel was picked off so early. Which, to no discredit to Fist, by the way, this is purely just a matter of P. McGee really knowing, like, what pieces need to be allocated to. So that's more credit to P. McGee than any not credit to Fist. I want to make that very clear. We see that Axel goes off and nails Eleno, so it's really just Gyarados and Lop left. Which, well, I got a hair in my mouth, god damn it. Which Gyarados coming in, and then Umbreon coming in following. Ooh, that's kind of bad, actually, because Gyarados could totally go for Mega now and chew the Foul Play damage at this point. So, we see Waterfall goes off. Foul Play actually broke. I'm kind of shocked that it did, I'll be honest. I feel like I had to do a better roll. We see that Waterfall goes off here. I'm really hoping for P. McGee's sake. No flinch. Okay, so that's kind of bad. To be fair, it's not unwinnable, but it is definitely unfortunate, at least. Though, as long as the sub gets broken at the end, I don't think this is a huge loss, personally, because Lop could totally try and out-win in the endgame. The crits, I'm sure, help, but definitely unfortunate. I feel like, though, that ultimately getting in Dawn Wings on paper was probably the better play, considering the fact that it could totally try and just get off the kill in this form. And truthfully, I would just try and set up with Ultra Necrozma in the Dawn Wings form, at least not knowing that Night Slash was on the set, which it seems like that's actually what Fist is going to do here. So, Dragon Dance goes off, Night Slash crit. I mean, it was fun. Like, sure, it's a fair, like, crit sucks, but it's a high crit move, so it's not as big of a deal. And then, yeah, Jitter just comes in and revenges, which is very unfortunate, because obviously, with the Night Slash, there's no way in hell, no matter what set this could have been. Was the sub a misclick? I don't think it really mattered, personally. I'm assuming that Fist probably wanted to bring it in on the Umbreon, because I feel like it would have been really hard to bring this in on, let's say, like the Xerneas, for example. I feel like that was slightly intentional. Like, not to give a ton of credit for the play, to be fair. I'm assuming it's either A, just a misclick, just out of habit and repetition, just trying to get it over with, or B, it was to try and get the Dawn Wings in on the Umbreon. That would be my personal thoughts. Because that way then, it's a free Dragon Dance turn on the Zern, and if Ditto is maybe not Scarf for whatever reason, maybe it's just a or maybe it's like Imposter Ditto, that was arguably the win con, I guess. My personal thought on that. I don't think it was a huge, like, it didn't save Fist or anything. I think, though, it was, if Fist was to bank on the Ditto being misgenned, or misprepped, that's kind of Fist's out at that point. basically, in my opinion. That's how I would look at it. But congratulations to P. McGee on the Savali title. Truly an amazing run. This was like a fucking insane run. After the week 1 loss, I don't think P. McGee dropped a single game all season, which I will take credit to being the P. McGee Slayer this season. P. McGee, if you want a match, by the way, I'm totally down to play you with the new team just for fun. Just because I know you mentioned you wanted a rematch. I would personally love to get to play the champ of the div. Regardless, though, I'm hoping I can beat Vanilla, so I can look forward to playing you in Arceus. But phenomenal season, though, and congratulations on the Arceus placement this coming season. When Season 9 does happen. Feeling for 7 in the Aftermath, I'm sure it's bad for this. Yeah, no. It quite literally, like I will say, on paper, with that matchup, but I'll pull up the matchup actually again. On paper, Ultra Necrozma and Zera and Pokemon like that should rail semi-stall, but I think it's specifically the way that Fist places games that P. McGee's team is such a perfect way of taking advantage of. Because Fist literally does, like, take advantage of everything with this team, specifically in a setup area. If Fist went for more of a stall break route, with like Zera, with like a taunt Zera, this is a very easy game for him in my opinion. But it just with how Fist typically does play his games, I think that this was a really good game for P. McGee. And I think it was clearly shown with stuff like the Pyukumuku. The Pyukumuku set was fucking amazing. Truthfully, P. McGee, it's probably one of the coolest sets I've seen in at least like a good amount of time. So really, really solid set in my opinion. That was amazing. Truthfully, I think that the finals for Arceus is going to be a tough game to top this. But I'm looking forward to this one. We actually do have both teams for this one, so we're going to go over both teams. Let me really quickly just pull up the Arceus doc. Yeah, you missed the Larry. It was very unfortunate. It was a really, really fun game. I highly recommend anyone who maybe didn't see it, to go check that one out. That was an amazing game. Let's see, BBL Arceus Season 8. So the final game we have, I will say I'm spoiling this one. Shoutouts to Owen for spoiling me on this one last night, very last second. But we're going to pull it up anyway. I'm still going to watch it through. It's not a big deal. This is Diet Tight versus Hahatos. So Hahatos is my personal pick to win. Hahatos is basically the up-and-coming third alt of Clutch sometimes. So I'm looking forward to this. Obviously, you know, if Hahatos is a rags to riches story right here. Joined BBL last season, made finals, then promoted to Arceus this season through a manual promotion, and then made finals yet again. So let's really quickly, we'll go over this matchup right here. We actually do have both teams, as I said. So first up, this is Hahatos' team. I'm going to go over this one first because it's the first one that I got received in DMs. So Hahatos is, well, actually first the matchup. So Jay's team is Marshadow, Nihilego, Latios, Mega Pidgeot, Melmetal, Xurkitree, Crocodile, Tangela, Suicune, Wobbuffet, Aromatisse, and Regice. So I like a lot of Jay's team. I'm actually huge on Mega Pidgeot. I thought it was really cool when I used it in BBL. Melmetal is obviously really cool. Lottie and Marshadow is really cool. I think he did a really good job at basically trying to draft a really solid team that allows for a lot of breakers from Marshadow. Stuff like, for example, Melmetal, Nihilego, Latios, etc. All pretty decent breakers. So I think there was definitely a lot going in Jay's favor, at least with the draft for Marshadow. But I also, like, not to say that Hahatos didn't do a good job. I actually think the Hahatos' draft is probably one of, if not my favorite drafts in Arceus. Hahatos' team, on the other hand, is Xerneas, Zygarde, 50%, Infernape, Corviknight, Azelf, Miltank, Mega Gyarados, Among Us, Selgor, Toxtricity, and Golem. So something I really liked about Hahatos' team is the Xerneas, Zygarde, Infernape set, which Xerneas has really just a struggle against poison and steel types, which Zygarde and Infernape are amazing at taking out. Not like this, but stuff like Corviknight is a really good slow pivot. It's a really good fairy resist for Pokemon that might try and take advantage of Fairy Aura. Toxtricity is a really good breaker as well for Xerneas to try and break past Pokemon in general. Mega Gyarados is a phenomenal Dark type, really good against a lot of the Psychic type other Uber Pokemon, which Xerneas might have a bit of a more neutral matchup against. And then Xerneas is great against the Dragon Ubers. So I think that Hahatos did a really good job at not only drafting for value, with stuff like Mega Gyarados, for example, being a very, very valuable Pokemon, but also drafting quite literally a perfect team for Xerneas, in my opinion. So first up, we see Spec Xerneas with Moonblast, Draining Kiss, Psyshock, and Focus Blast. I see that Hahatos has learned the best set for Xerneas is a bulky Spec set, which is very accurate. It's absolutely the best set you could run in most cases for Xerneas in this sort of format, because Spec's Moonblast just hits so hard. And Jay's switch-ins is probably, unironically, the best switch-in here would probably be AV Nihilego, if not, like, Rest Talk, Spinef, and Melmetal, which neither one of them really want a long-term switch-in on this sort of set. So, definitely really good. Focus Blast and Psyshock are specifically for Melmetal and Nihilego, respectively, with Moonblast and Drain Kiss just being really good options to break the rest of the team. I'm assuming the Fizz Def investment is for Marshadow, if I had to guess, or for, like, Psyshock Lottie, but we have sub, protect, arrows, and toxic Zygarde. Just Spit F. I'm assuming this is probably meant to be Spit F for Nihilego, which is really good at that. Can obviously take advantage of that, and toxic really good for Tangela, which would probably be the premier switch into this. So really good there. Also for Fizz F Crook, we have Corviknight with Roost, Protect, Brave Bird, and Ironhead. I'm assuming Protect is to toxic stall, or maybe stall at Trick Room if Halitus was fearing Trick Room Aromatisse with like Melmetal as the breaker. Could be really good either way. We have obviously U-turn for the pivot into Xerneas. We have Azelf with knockoff U-turn / shock and trick. I like the trick scarf here personally, really good for stuff like, for example, Nihilego, which, weird to say, you know, giving a Nihilego scarf is a bad thing, but I think in this matchup it actually could be, considering an AV or a leftovers Nihilego could be soft check to Xerneas. It could be a pretty good soft check to Xerneas with this specific set, especially if it doesn't predict the Nihilego switch in. So giving a scarf actually could probably be really good. We have Specs Electricity with Volt Switch, Overdrive, Boom Burst, and Sludge Wave. Really just meant to be a good breaker. Jay's ground type is obviously not going to take on Boom Burst that reliably over time. So really, really good set here. And then finally, we have Restock Gyarados, which is really good at checking Lottie. So I like the team a lot. I see a lot of people are the P. McGee fans here. Very, 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 very awesome, in my opinion. 2 Mega Gyarados. Yeah, no, honestly, this is my favorite part of the BBL Finals this time around. The fact that there are 2 Mega Gyarados. I love Mega Gyarados in this format. I think it is so underexplored for BBL. And I'm really, really glad. Shut up. I actually did. My only finals in BBL is Mega Gyarados. Zeke. I'll have you know, it is my only BBL finals. And I had to play M Dragon for that one. So I don't want to hear shit. Jay, perfect time. We're literally just about to go over your team for the finals. We quite literally are just about to pull up your specific team for finals. So we have Jay's team here with Spell Tag, Marshadow, with Spectral Thief, Close Combat, Poltergeist, and Shadow Sneak. Assuming the Poltergeist was obviously just a higher damage output move for Ghost type, considering the fact that the only switch-ins would be Gyarados and Miltank, both of which get ripped by Close Combat. And Shadow Sneak is really good priority. Obviously, it's great for especially Pokemon like maybe Scarf and Burnape, which could otherwise just go for Flare Blitz. Same as stuff like Xerneas, if it's really weak. Just Pokemon like that, Shadow Sneak is really good priority for. Same as Azelf too, because unironically the Scarf Azelf actually did come. We have Pidgeot with Hurricane, Heat Wave, Roost, and U-turn. Really good pivot here, especially as a faster end pivot. Hurricane, there's not really good flying switches actually in this team. Really, the only two are Toxtricity and Corviknight. So that's one thing that Jay actually has going in his favor with Mega Pidgeot. And especially the fact that Corviknight is hit super effectively by Heat Wave and also risks burn that way. Definitely a really good Pidgeot matchup actually, in my opinion. We have Melmetal with double Iron Bash, Body Press, Rest Talk. So Spit F Rest Talk actually did come. Really good Xerneas check in my opinion, if not like AV Nihilego, which ends up actually being Black Sludge with Bulky, so that also works really well to be fair. With Sludge Wave, Power Gem, Grass Knot, and Cell Rock. Grass Knot's really good obviously for Gara. We have Power Gem, which is really good just in general against this team, considering the Rock switch-ins really just Zygarde and Golem. So that's actually pretty nice, considering the fact that Zygarde obviously could still get poisoned from Sludge Wave. I will say though, to be fair, I don't know the calcs for it, Jay, to be fair. You probably know them a lot better than I do. I kind of am unsure why not Dazzling Gleam over Grass Knot, considering the fact that Dazzling Gleam would hit both Zygarde and the Gyarados. But I'm sure there was some reason for it. I know you're incredible builder, so I would not be shocked if maybe it was just because Grass Knot just did enough damage to Gyarados and Dazzling Gleam didn't. Dazzling Gleam isn't exactly a huge high power based move, but it does feel like a kind of missed opportunity, just on paper at least, without doing the calcs, because it hits both of them for super effective, and you could have had perfect neutral cover against the entire team, if not super effective. So that's, I'm assuming Grass Knot was probably just for the, oh, was it for the goal? Was it really for the, there's no way it was for the goal. Okay, I would have believed if you said it was for the Gyarados. Mega Gyarados, I'm pretty sure is a heavy fucker. If I remember correctly, Mega Gyarados is a really, really heavy Pokemon. Let me actually double check this. Nihilego versus Gyarados Mega with Grass Knot. Yeah, Grass Knot's a guarantee to a KO actually. Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam actually is a guarantee 3 KO even versus No Bulk. Okay, so I guess it probably was just for the Mega Gyarados. So you know what, Jay? You win this one. Accidentally, you get this one right. We have Suicune with Scald, Ice Beam, Toxic, Protect. Scald, Toxic, Ice Beam, Protect honestly is really good. Toxic's really good at just trying to Toxic down the team, because this is a terrible Miltank matchup, so not really a reliable cleric here. And then, well, Xerneas actually is a pretty reliable cleric, but it has a kind of hard time clicking that unless it's a really bulky set. Scald's really good for burning stuff like Zygarde, and also for Corviknight especially. And then Protect obviously is just really good for weighing stuff down with Toxic and Burn Chip. We have Tangela as the Zygarde check obviously with Leech, Synth, Knockoff, and Grass Knot. Grass Knot's great because without Skitter Smack breaking the, without Skitter Smack dropping the special attack, I believe it's up to -2 that can still break sub with Grass Knot. Well, up to -1. -1 I know can versus the not super speed F Zygarde, and -2 is where it starts not breaking subs. SC8, yeah, you know what? SC8 actually does a ton of damage against you, but to be fair, you still have some good responses. I'm sure Suicune takes a single hit, especially being Max Fizz Death. Marshadow obviously does a really good job at revenging with Shadow Sneak. especially just if it's SD Ape, it's also just not outpacing in general and can't Mach Punch you. So you do have options, but it definitely does a lot of damage here. I would say if not SD Ape, I would say probably, I'd probably say the other Pokemon. I mean, Abandoned Zygarde also could put in at least a good amount of work if it, assuming Tangela got worn down, which there's a lot of good Tangela checks here on Hall-Hadis' team. So I think it could at least be a really good late game Pokemon. Obviously, I mean, I pulled up Hall-Hadis' team before, so we all kind of know what that is. But just on paper, I think it's the other thing. It kind of could be a really good cleaner here. But obviously, that wasn't what came. Regardless, though, let's get into the final game. So we see for the final game, we actually saw both teams, so I don't even need to go over what the other person brought here. In terms of leads, if I had to predict, I would assume that Jay probably let off. So I think that the issue that Jay actually has here is that finding a lead for Toxtricity actually is pretty annoying. I think Nihilego kind of has to lead with that in mind, and also getting up their hazards would be really good for just forcing default Corviknight if it had it, or for just maybe breaking Azelf Sash later on in the game if it didn't lead, or just in general, it's a really good chip on Gyarados. In terms of Hall-Hadis' lead, I'd probably just lead Tox. I feel like Tox is just a really no drawback lead for Hall-Hadis in my opinion. It's not a mon that super needs to be kept around. It's just a really good mon to break early on. So we see that Pidgeot ends up actually leading and Azelf leads. So I'm kind of shocked with these leads though, to be fair. I'm more so shocked knowing this is a Scarfed Azelf that led. Again, I feel like Tox is such a no drawback lead here. Because even if Pidgeot U-turn, it still kind of has a tough time switching in reliably. So this was a really good turn 1 for Hall-Hadis if Toxtricity was let off with. We see that U-turn's going to go off on Pidge and kind of just reveal the Scarf early on. I would have probably just hard swap personally. Not really reveal at turn 1. I feel like that's kind of an important thing to maybe keep around. Because it could have potentially maybe forced a sneak on Marshadow where it wasn't really needed. Or even just in general, it could have just been really good at maybe tricking the Scarf later on to Suicune. But regardless, I mean, Corviknight's still a really good brand, to be fair. I just would have probably hard swapped is all. And then Hurricane does go off from Jay. Really no drawback Hurricane. Because even if Toxtricity or Corviknight came in, it was a really free turn to maybe just try and take advantage of that. Heatwave goes off in the Protect Corviknight. Really good scout that at the very least. You know, Zygarde. I'm not sure what Zygarde was switching. I feel like I would have just went Tox. Because you're risking the burn on Zygarde, which is really bad actually. It takes out any potential for damage output. To be fair, this is more of a toxic protect Zygarde. So not that it super needs to go for damage output, but taking out any chance at it is kind of annoying for stuff like Melmetal and Nihilego. So definitely unfortunate there. Regardless though, we're going to see that the Hurricane goes off here, which honestly is still some really good damage. Because even Pidge getting Toxic, it really just needs to be good for the early game to break. Yeah, thank God you have Grass Knot, I know, right? We see that Tangela comes out on the Zygarde, which is really free for it, to be completely honest. Because even if Jay gets off a Toxic, this Grass Knot should still do around like 20-something%. Yeah, we see 27% right here. And Zygarde doesn't really have a way to recover on the set either. So, Corviknight's going to come in here. I imagine that Jay's just going to go for Leech. Nope, Grass Knot. Okay, Grass Knot's fine too, to be honest. Because even with the Grass Knot here, it doesn't really matter considering... while Leech, to be fair, could have been a good play, considering it could have scouted for sub, and then if a sub went off that turn, Grass Knot's very free next turn. We've already seen we've already seen Arrows and Toxic here, so at that point, it's at best sub in a setup move, which is not really a setup move at that point. That could have maybe taken advantage of Tangela. So I feel like that Leech was still kind of a free play there. Not that it was 100% like a guaranteed good play, but I feel like there wasn't a ton of drawback to it, and I could have pressured Corv a little bit better. Though, to be fair, there are still really good switches to Corv. It's not like it's a real game breaker or anything. Suicune and Melmetal should very easily maul this mon. So not having Leech isn't really a huge thing. I see that Knockoff actually goes off here. Knockoff here was actually a super good play, though, on the other hand. I think the Knockoff here taking advantage of potentially Corviknight leftovers, or if not, in this case, the Tox choice specs, was so amazing for Jay, actually. Because this means that Tox is so much more neutralized. Nihilego's a lot better at checking at this point. So that's actually really, really good for him, on the other hand. And Tangela can easily switch, again, to Nihilego here, which now actually has a good chance of sponging. Because we see here that even without Spadef, that was only 26%, which is really good because Jay makes that a 5 KO at this point. Azelf will come in here on the other hand, though, which, I mean, to be fair, it is kind of a free Melmetal, but it's definitely unfortunate at the very least that that just got the free pivot is all. Because now Jay kind of has to go back into Tox, and he's kind of caught in a little bit of a momentum cycle until he gets a prediction right. So, a little bit unfortunate, but to be fair, Melmetal's basically healing up all these turns, and luckily that happened sooner rather than later, because now Melmetal kind of just gets a free double Iron Bash this turn. Or Jay just goes into Nihilego. That kind of works too. I'm assuming that Grass Knot probably kills at this point. Or just Tangela doubles him. That also works, to be fair, considering now Jay gets a really, really, really Leech Seed. So, if nothing else, that's actually not that bad either. we see that the lead sheet does go off here. Okay. So the lead sheet should be actually really good because Nihilego should be able to double in. This will get some more recovery on Nihilego if Jay doesn't go for a Volt Switch. And if he does, I mean, it's still going to chew really well. So we see the Vultures goes off. This is definitely getting worn down a bit much for Xerneas' for the Xerneas matchup. To be fair, it's still not the end of the world because Melmetal is still a really good check. But it definitely takes away one potential coverage option that Xerneas ever has to click. Though to be fair, Jay going for the Volt Switch this turn, Hiatus going for Volt Switch, gave the Melmetal a free rest. So it is already healthy enough to try and actually take on Xerneas well. And with the Burn Zygarde, it's not exactly breaking Melmetal either. So Sleep Talk goes off, and Double Iron Bash does a good amount of Tox. It's actually really good damage, considering Tox is no longer actually switching on Melmetal, or anything for that matter. At this point, I feel like Hiatus probably just clicks Thunderbolt here, if not maybe Boom Burst, trying to predict a Nihilego. Overdrive, yeah, that's right, it had Overdrive. That's actually pretty good, because if nothing else, if Sleep Talk rolled Rest, that could have actually been a really good turn, because it would have forced a Rest from Melmetal again, and could have maybe just kept on trying to bank for crit or Rest rolls. So, I get why Hiatus did that, to be fair. It's just a bit unfortunate it happened turn 1, that it was out of favor. We see that Tangela doubles on the Gyarados. Very good play by Jay, of course, keeping defensive momentum. Leech Seed as well being a really free play this turn, especially because even with the Toxic Chip, Tangela should be able to keep a lot of health, and Jay's momentum really just relies on Azelf and Corviknight at this point, with most of the team being susceptible to being forced to double, which is really good for Jay at this point. Now on Corviknight, Nihilego actually doubled in. Oh, right, you know what? I think we actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but we know the full Corviknight reset. I mean, to be fair, Bruce is probably the very obvious last move here, so Nihilego double does make a lot of sense. Sadly, though, Jay will have to double this turn, or not. Well, to be fair, actually, if Jay was saving this as more of a Tox check, that actually makes a lot of sense. If this was more so for Xerneas and Tox dual checking, though, then I'm not sure why he did that play necessarily, but if it was just for Tox, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Rock Scout now is also actually really good for Jay. Wears down a lot of the team more easily, especially knowing that Corv probably doesn't have Defog, and really the only Defogger could probably be Xerneas. So this is a really free, I believe, Double Iron Bash outright, if not a rest this turn. So that's actually really good for Jay. I think that Jay kind of just has the upper hand here by a significant margin, because there's not much that Hiatus' team can really do at this point from what we've seen so far. Best, maybe it's a Xerneas Focus Blast crit, well, with really garbage Sleep Talk rolls, like Body Press or Rest. But Hiatus isn't really going to break this. Like, it's just going for Brave Bird spam at this point, while neither do a lot of damage. We see that Suigen's actually going for Scalds at this point, probably trying to get the burn just for more long gaming. Which is totally fair, that makes a lot of sense, but Xerneas is actually finally coming in. Xerneas finally touches the field. And what Xerneas actually going to do here, I feel like it's just Moonblasting, right? Focus Blast, ooh, it calls Jay out very, very comfortably, and that Focus Blast does a ton of damage still. Honestly, if I was Hiatus, I would have clicked it again. I think Hiatus clicking Focus Blast there again was a really, really no drawback play, considering the fact that if he took out Melmetal, this is basically just fairy spam at that point. So I think that might have actually been a little bit of a choke. I would take, like, I get there's obviously a 70% chance to hit. I think that Hiatus is down bad enough to where this kind of needed to take the risk. Because if this gets a rest off, that's pretty bad, considering the fact that it could maybe roll. Well, he knew you saw specs. I mean, again, to be fair, I mean, the Marshall double was really good, but I feel like that in a worst case, he kind of had to go for it. Like, I get why he would have maybe made that play. I feel like, though, there was no real drawback. I feel like the Protect is also a bit weird, considering if a bulk up went off there, that was pretty bad for Corviknight. It would be one thing, I guess, to protect the Melmetal. I feel like it was a really bad play to protect the Marshadow, though. Because if it got a bulk up there and maybe one for Drain Punch spam, that could have been pretty terrifying, actually. That might have been game ending. Regardless, though, so you can get some Protect off here, which is really good to scout, obviously, for the specs damage on the Xerneas. So that's really nice, because now Melmetal is a very free switch. Because even with that 90%, Xerneas gets a little bit of HP back, sure, but it's still a net negative. See, I think, I don't think the Marshadow double was I'm gonna guess, I don't think that was a terrible play. I think it's, personally, I would have went for the risk. I think Hiatus is down bad enough to kind of have to. But that was up in the air. I think the Corviknight Protect was objectively a pretty bad play, though, at that point. I think that there was really no reason, and it could have potentially ended up with choking. So, anyway, at this point, the Corviknight switch here makes a lot of sense. This point, we're kind of just seeing a war of attrition with Hiatus versus Jay at this point until one of them gets one of their breakers in. At this point as well, with Double Iron Bash, it's actually getting off not bad damage either. Jay really just needs to wait for Hiatus to make a double and a Double Iron Bash roll to happen, or for, I guess, Suicune to come in and force something out. Either one work, which I purely said the Suicune point because Jay went into Suicune there. If Suikin gets a Skullbird here, it's kind of game over for Hiatus. Not that Gyarados is a ton here. Well, actually, no, never mind. It's Restock, right? It's Restock Crunch. So actually, this doesn't really even matter. In fact, it's probably in Hiatus' best play to just try and hope that he can win with Dragonite's Gyarados. Maybe get some lucky flinches with Crunch, defense drops, etc. Whatever he really needs, and especially with Restock too. This actually should hopefully help a little bit with the pressure situation. So we're going to see that the rest goes off here, which is great. I like as well that he's not going for the Mega yet, because it makes him a bit more weak to Marshadow, which is really good for Hiatus specifically to be doing this. So we're going to see that also makes him a bit more weak to Tangle actually as well, because Mega Gyarados is heavier and it's weak to Grass instead of neutral. So I like the fact that he's making this play instead, going for the Mega on the pre-Mega Gyarados. Well, going for the Dragonites on the pre-Mega Gyarados, I should say. Xerneas switching was good here, albeit risking a knockoff, but I feel like a Grass Knot was definitely a very, very obvious play there, so totally fair. I don't really see there's a world where knockoff would actually be clicked here. And yep, as we see, even the Nihilego was taking a ton of damage from Dranicus. Dranicus definitely KO'd though. I'm not sure why he didn't just commit to KOing. Feels like an unnecessary sack of Zygarde, though, albeit not as bad as the Corviknight Protect, but still, I feel like it was just an unnecessary sack. Because I feel like if you just click Dranicus there, or actually, no, never mind. What am I saying? Nihilego outpaces. Just naturally outpaces, and this is Spec Xerneas. Never mind, I take it back. Anyway. So we see that Azelf comes in and just U-turns on the Melmetal switch. Again, giving Gyarados a really free turn here to try and set up, which is really nice for Hiatus, of course. Dragonite is going off, and again, without a Dark switch in, this is actually really good for Jay. I'm for Hiatus here. I totally get why, to be fair, the Mega was committed here. This is mostly because it gets a lot more spread against Pidgeot, and if for whatever reason, just the stab crunch obviously was probably for a KO. So totally get that at the very least. A bit unfortunate he had to pop it, but it feels like a necessary evil at that point. So we see that the Corviknight gets leech seeded. My guess is, yep, it's going to U-turn probably into Gyarados here. Did you live the Crunch? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense then. Obviously, Crunch gets a stab on the Mega, so makes total sense. Jay's going for Protect here, scouting for the Moonblast. So that obviously helps give the Melmetal switch in here and potentially get some more recovery back on it. Though that Specs Moonblast is so much damage. Oh my god, I take that back. It's not actually a switch in. That does way too much damage. To be fair, Xerneas is weak enough because it wasn't Dranicus that was clicked there, and it was instead Moonblast, to where Marshadow gets a really free Poltergeist here. So we see the Poltergeist go off. That actually 2-hit Corviknight at this point, which is pretty incredible. Though, to be fair, Nihilego's probably, as Jay did, I'll pause a little bit here to kind of catch up a bit. But I feel like the Nihilego double here was really good because, again, we know that Corviknight can't really touch it, and at the same time, if, let's say, the Poltergeist missed here, that's a very important Pokemon to be going down. And Jay, despite the pieces being 4-4, I feel like Jay, in the end, has the upper hand here by a good amount. Marshadow should be able to clean at this point as long as Jay's careful with it. And this is still a really good Power Gem turn because there's not really a switch in at this point left in this game. Even Gyarados takes a good amount, at least if nothing else. And still, obviously, because of the fact that it's not boosted, it risks stuff like Grass Knot. So, at this point, Jay really just needs to try and hope for a crit, or maybe just hope that Corviknight runs out of recovery, so then it can get worn down by Marshadow later on. Suikin could totally try and double in at one point or another, though I'm assuming that Jay probably just wanted to farm through Roost turns and get as much recovery back as possible, so totally fair. I feel like, though, another play could be that Jay's maybe just trying to sack Nihilego and just hope that maybe Marshadow can come in. Because by going into Suicune, that would potentially give a free Xerneas turn to maybe go for that Dranicus, and Jay's switch-ins are definitely getting severely decreased against Xerneas. So I can definitely see why he hesitated until, I guess, just now to go into Suicune. But eventually that progress doesn't need to be made, to be fair. If I was Jay, I'd probably double into Nihilego now. Or, I mean, Scald works too. Scald totally is fair, because it's free chip on Xerneas. But the slow pivot now into Xerneas does mean a really, really free Moonblast, or even Dranicus. So, sadly, at this point, Jay actually doesn't have a switch into that. So he's just going to sort of have to take it on the chin. And it seems like Moonblast is what Hiatus elected to click. Nihilego should take a ton from this. Yep, it's actually outright KO'd. Which, to be fair, though, Marshadow now gets a really free Poltergeist turn. Because even if Gyarados comes in, at this point, there's not really a reason to not click. Or I guess Special 3 also works. It was probably in range of that, to be fair. I would have probably clicked Poltergeist just because I'm assuming... A Corviknight was still really high HP, right? Actually, Corviknight would have been... Corviknight would have... Yeah, Corviknight would have been 2-KO'd. To be fair, now that Gyarados is sacked, Corviknight does come in for free. Forces into Suicune, which will then allow in Xerneas, which Xerneas should be able to get off a Dranicus at that point, or even just a Moonblast. At this point, I'd probably just be firing off Moonblasts until Azelf can maybe win. But, to be fair, Dranicus could be still totally clicked for a reliable recovery, or as reliable recovery as possible, I should say, and try and keep this thing healthy to maybe long term. So we see that Suicune goes for Protect here, trying to obviously, pressure stall a little bit, And we see how Hiatus does elect for the Draining Kiss, which, in my mind, that's probably the better play here, because it gives potential to maybe live a Marshadow hit if it gets enough recovery back, which it still gets, like, 41% off. Now, Toxic and Suicune obviously does help, because this will hopefully help stall out Xerneas a little bit longer, give some actual long-term way to beat Xerneas, especially with the Draining Kiss recovery. So, really, really good play by Jay, actually, to try and give up the Suicune here. Because, at this point, if Corviknight does come in at all, Tangela can obviously be sacked. It's not really doing a ton except for being a sack piece at this point. So getting off the Toxic and Xerneas, I think this opened up Marshadow for an actual out at this game. Hiatus at this point kind of has to switch around Suicune, which isn't exactly reliable because now it's going to take 6% and it's going to take another 12%. And in the end, it's taking 30% basically every time it comes in just to get a hit off on Suicune, which at best with Draining Kiss, it's definitely getting neutral recovery back. With Moonblast was able to take out the Tangela, sure, but it ends up dropping the Xerneas at this point, which really does open up a Suicune win game, actually. Because even with the Trick Azelf, if Azelf does go for the Trick Scarf on Suicune, it's really just needing Scald at this point to try and actually stall out the Corviknight with pressure. And on top of that as well, Suicune getting tricked isn't really the worst case scenario because it means that Marshadow gets a really free Spectral Thief on Azelf now. So definitely opens up Jay to be a lot less risky, I guess is the best way to put it. Though I don't even know if it was a risk, to be fair, with Spell Tag Shadow Sneak against the Scarf Azelf. We see the Protect go off, and we see the Trick actually go off as well, which is really actually good for Jay, considering Marshadow doesn't really lose a ton by being Scarfed at this point, considering the fact that, Scarf Poltergeist is just such a free option for it. So we see Suicune double in on the Corviknight now. At this point, it's really just about stalling through Corviknight and Azelf, which Jay can pretty comfortably do, in my opinion. I think he definitely has the upper hand here. We see very little PP on Roos, only 6 turns, so not really in the best position for Jay. And Azelf obviously doesn't really have recovery unless it tricks those leftovers from Suicune, which at this point, Jay can kind of just go through, and now that Knockoff has been clicked here, Jay can bring in Marshadow for free, and even losing a Spell Tag, I'm assuming that Poltergeist still kind of rips through his team, considering after Rocks, Corviknight is still going to have like 43% left, which I would be shocked if 2 Poltergeists didn't KO this. So at this point, Hiatus has to pick a sack, because Knockoff will definitely not KO, especially without the item being on here. And we see that Azelf goes down, which Click Ghost Comet there actually was a really good play, considering it was probably the best way that Jay had to damage Corviknight at that point. So really, really good turn actually for Jay, because at this point he really just needs to click until Corviknight claims the kill on Marshadow. Then Suicune should be able to come in revenge, because we know that Suicune is faster. So even if Marshadow does get Roosh spammed at this point until defense is dropped to an insane amount, at this point, Suicune should always win. There's not a Corviknight set in the world that would actually beat Suicune. Well, there's no way in hell that this Corviknight set, with how little PP it has, could actually beat Suicune at this point. So we see that Suicune ends up claiming a 1-0 win here and giving Jay the Arceus Championship. So congratulations to all of our winners on this amazing Season 9. Amazing Season 8. Yeah, Season 8. Obviously some really good games. Jay killed it with his season in general. Personal favorite win of the season has to go to P. McGee. I thought this was a real rags to riches story, especially with the draft. Personally, while P. McGee, I think, played it really well, I thought that P. McGee's team was definitely in the middle to low end of this general pool. Not that it was a bad draft, I thought it was mid, though. Whereas Jay's team I thought was really good. I thought Hades' team was really good. I thought Fist is one of the best teams in the league. And then Burning and Simpleton. Simpleton's team was actually pretty average, but I think it was good for the div. And then Burning's team was fucking amazing. I put it in like my top 5. I think that it was really cool to see P. McGee actually tear up as much as he did this season, especially with Pikamuku. So, congratulations to all of our winners, though. If you guys enjoyed the stream, leave a like. It's the easiest way and the best way to support. In general, I guess this is the best way to plug it. BBT apps will be going out on March 4th, so keep an eye out for those. It'll be a tournament, really small pools to 16 or 32 coach bracket for just Uber's draft, obviously, with 8 to 9 Pokemon per team. So hopefully you guys keep up and sign up for that. It's basically the equivalent to our version of like a Cash Game Tour or like a Summer Showdown, just on a much smaller scale with a much smaller prize set. So if you guys sign up for that, with that said though, I would like to thank you guys for joining in general, and we will see you guys. Oh yeah, P. McGee, yeah, Nulla R season 2 seasons, so that's also really, really amazing. With that said though, I'll see you guys in the next stream in general. We'll be live tomorrow with either XY or Luminescent, I'm not sure which. Video wise, we'll have more Road to Rank tomorrow. So hopefully you guys stay tuned for that. With that said though, I'll see you guys in the next thing, whatever it is. Peace out, guys.